Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties, education, and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
Liberty Counsel filed a reply to the ACLU in the Giles County, Virginia 10 Commandments case. I am Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, this is a case where the ACLU of Virginia filed a lawsuit against the Giles County School Board in Virginia regarding Narrows High School, which posted a display called the Foundations of American Law and Government display. Now, this display has 11 equal-sized frames, 11 frames the exact same size, not one frame larger than another. And one of those frames, 1/11th of that display, has the Ten Commandments. Well, of course, you know what the ACLU targeted, saying that this made it unconstitutional, and therefore the display had to go.
Yeah, the ACLU once again demonstrates its overt hostility toward religion, particularly toward the Christian faith. And, you know, they like to go after the little guy. That's their MO. They'll send these demand letters. They'll intimidate and bully smaller communities, small school districts, and so forth. Well, you know, hey, how about going after the big guy? If you want to get the Ten Commandments removed from public buildings, they better file a lawsuit against the United States Supreme Court, because the Ten Commandments are plastered all over the United States Supreme Court. They're going to have to get out the sandblaster and spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. generally, as references to religion, to Christ, to the Ten Commandments are all over our foundational memorials.
Well, Liberty Counsel, you're right, is defending the Giles County School Board, and so we filed our reply to them. We've actually filed a motion to dismiss. They filed a response. We filed a reply. And in that reply, we point out the fact that the ACLU is trying to divert the court's attention away from the actual display. First of all, they don't want the court to consider all 11 equal-sized frames. Specifically, they don't want the court to consider the frame that says what the purpose of this is all about, where it talks about each particular document, talks about that it's historical and educational in nature, and that each one of these have played a role in influencing American law and government. They want the court to just simply forget about that. Instead, they want the court to change its focus to some members of the community, private individuals who had nothing to do with the government's decision to accept this donation. And those individuals, they say, have a religious motive for having this display up there. And therefore, they say, because the private members from the community have a religious motive, allegedly, for this display, then this display should be declared unconstitutional. Yeah. So they're really running from the display itself. That's number one. And number two, they're running from court precedent.
That's right.
We also pointed out that there are 3 separate federal courts of appeal where the ACLU filed suit, Liberty Counsel defended, regarding the Foundations of American Law and Government display, the same exact display in which those courts have upheld those displays as constitutional.
And that's why we see this act of desperation on the part of the ACLU, this hide-the-ball shell game. They have to divert attention from that reality because they know that this display is fully constitutional. The courts have upheld it on a number of occasions, yet they just can't get over, as I mentioned, that overt hostility toward the Ten Commandments. They want it out of there at all costs, so they're willing to really disingenuously. I mean, this is dishonesty. Let's be very clear here. The fact that they are not willing to address the entire document and the clear language explaining the purpose, the historical purpose of the document, shows that they know they're on the losing end, essentially, in terms of court precedent. And they know that in this case, if the court looks at all the facts, that the First Amendment will once again prevail. They don't want that to happen because the ACLU is anti-First Amendment. They are anti, particularly as it pertains to the free exercise of religion. They've demonstrated it over and over again.
Yeah, well, they want to focus the court's attention away from the real issue, and we want to focus them right back on what the issue is. And obviously it's the display as a whole, and the purpose of it is not found in some subjective recesses of a private individual's mind out there somewhere in the community, but right there on the display. Just go look at the display. Just take a look at it in its context, look at it with regards to what its purpose is, and then make a decision. And also look at some of the cases that have upheld. By the way, not just a display that's like this, not a display that is somewhat like this, but an identical display.
Right. Identical display has been upheld time and again.
Against the same ACLU group. Now, it's not the same ACLU of Virginia, but it's the same ACLU. It's in ACLU in Kentucky and ACLU in Indiana. It's the same ACLU organization.
Now, Matt, I mentioned before how that is hard enough for me to get my mind around, how they can do this when you consider that this exact display has already been upheld a number of times. But how even larger than that, again, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, how do they reconcile this nonsense with the fact that the Ten Commandments themselves are found within and outside of the United States Supreme Court building in 50 different areas, and over 50 different areas? How do they reconcile that reality, that fact, with this new push to remove the ACLU, or rather to remove the Ten Commandments from Giles County?
Well, they don't. That's why they run from that as well.
Yeah.
They just want the court to, they think if they beat the drum long enough and loud enough and say that there's somebody out in the community that has a religious motivation, it should be unconstitutional. The problem is that's what the ACLU did in Grayson County, Kentucky, and that's where we ultimately defended that as well. In Grayson County, Kentucky, the ACLU said, well, a minister is the one that suggested to the county to have a Foundations of American Law and Government display. And then there was a private display that was donated, and they say because the suggestion came from a minister, therefore it should be unconstitutional because the purpose is obviously religious. And the court actually asked them during oral argument, what happens if someone other than a minister had made that suggestion in the open county council hearing? And the ACLU said, well, that would be a different issue. And they said, so just because it's coming from a minister, that makes it religious in purpose. And they said, yes. Shocking as that sounds, that's what the ACLU's position is.
Well, yeah. Well, and Matt, I mean, don't we know that it's Christians, certainly, but certainly ministers, men of the cloth, cannot have any actual involvement in community outside of their church walls. That's essentially what they're arguing here, because this minister walked outside of his church and engaged in something other than preaching from the pulpit on Sunday morning, that he's disqualified from engaging in his citizenship.
They're clearly taking the position because you are a minister, you have a disability.
Such intolerance and discrimination is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and they've done that not just on the Ten Commandments case, but I've seen them do that on other cases as well, with the ACLU arguing in other cases involving free speech, where their issue of whether it's government speech or free speech, where we've won, where they have said because it's a clergy or somebody with a religious background that ultimately changes the entire situation, and if someone else was not religious with their background, that makes it completely different. So literally at the end of the day, they want to penalize people because of their religious faith.
I'm just curious, where are they coming from? How do they come up with this anti-Christian litmus test? What are their explanations for this?
Well, they don't explain it. Because there's no precedent that supports that. There's not any history that supports that. It's just the ACLU, and they try to argue it. And the problem is that even though it gets rejected, they'll argue it again and again. And if we're not there to point out the absurdity of it, eventually it could be accepted as principle. That's how the ACLU gained so much ground in the first 70 years of its existence, from 1920 to the 1980s.
Well, ACLU founder Roger Baldwin, as I've pointed out a number of times, said, quote, "Communism is the goal, and what is a central principle to communism? It is the abolition of religion, and particularly the abolition of the Christian faith."
Well, give us a call at Liberty Counsel, 1-800-671-1776. We'll keep you up to date with regards to this Ten Commandments argument that the ACLU is making. We're defending the foundations of American law and government. and we'll keep you up to date. We can't be there without your prayers and obviously your financial support, because all that we do pro bono. We're not charging the school board anything for our services. So we're there because of your financial support. You can go to Liberty Counsel's website to support us financially. And you can also order the Constitution, our Patriots Handbook of American Liberty. It has the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. If you read this Constitution, you'll know more about the Constitution just by one read than the ACLU ever knew. So give us a call and order the Patriots Handbook on American Liberty with the Constitution, the Declaration, Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech, and an essay from me. And then also, this is a tremendous resource, especially for the end of the year for Christmas gifts. I would encourage you to get David Barton's Original Intent. We have this at Liberty Counsel's store. You can order it online at lc.org or call us today at 1-800-671-1776 for a contribution of $15. We will send you this book right away.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.